Boom, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to be going over the CPI data. We've seen a quick move up in the S&P 500 and across the board for the crypto sector. And I also wanted to briefly touch into the Inflation Reduction Act. So let's start there. Apparently, printing money to shove into the IRS to aim at the middle class will somehow reduce inflation, because inflation comes from people not paying taxes. We really live in the la-la land where the people in charge have no clue what's going on. So this year, we've redefined what a recession is, so I wonder when we'll redefine what bad inflation is, which seemingly is where we're at today. So again, the CPI data came out at 8.5%, which is apparently positive news for the majority of the sector. Again, lower than what we would have expected, but 8 is still high, and it's actually probably much higher than that, depending on how you look at this data. So off this news, I guess it's kind of funny. This is from the economist at Drake University. Says the 8.5% annual inflation rate for the last 12 months is just huge. Markets welcomed the CPI data, where headline inflation was unchanged in July, bringing the annual rate down from a 41-year high of 9.1% in the prior month. Evans then went on to say he expected the Fed to continue to increase its benchmark interest rate for the year and into the next in order to make sure it gets inflation back down to the central bank's 2% target. Now, in the past, if inflation was at 9%, you usually needed the interest rates double that. This is we could go back to some of the Volcker data, so chances are they're going to continue to raise. Now again, when you're dealing with a government who just will redefine the term of the thing that they don't like recession, it's clear that we are living in a world that no longer uses functional data, and therefore, hey, it's only at 8.5%, market numbers go up. Now again, in terms of monetary policy, I guess the Fed has been quite hawkish. They were dovish since the beginning of the pandemic, and then as soon as you basically invest at the start of the pandemic and sell everything when the mask mandates dropped and people started to return to normal. This is kind of a really interesting conversation around buy the fear, sell the normalcy effectively in our society today. So we hit kind of a peak moment of fear. Oh my God, Russia and Putin and gas and food shortages, which are things to be worried about. I'm not saying we should, like in general, society shouldn't be worried about a ridiculous cost rise in prices from everything from electricity to food to gas. All those costs have gone up. But just this small decrease, and we've seen a massive jump in the crypto markets. Now, I do suspect that this will continue. This data we have to rely on for the next month. So the fact that we've already seen a positive indication from the buying of again, the S&P 500, we got a lot of market green today right now. I do suspect that will continue for the rest of the month unless we see some type of abstraction in data. Now, again, I just want to point out how ridiculous it is that the government is effectively going to print $780 billion. I think that's what it was, of just below $1 trillion basically to combat climate change and also to lower prescription drug costs. Now, I live here in Costa Rica, and most of the drugs you can get here are basically 100 times cheaper because we don't have the restrictions and the bureaucracy around those drugs, and it's not really the company's fault so much as it's the government's fault. So it's important to keep in mind they're trying to battle themselves here by printing more money. You can't do that. Printing more money doesn't help reduce inflation. So we have a bunch of morons that are in charge, and I don't see how this gets better until people start to realize you can't have stupid people running the country and clap your hands for them like little fucking seals just because they happen to fit like some diverse portfolio of people you want running the country. If they're still stupid, doesn't make a difference. You end up with horrible policy that continually cannibalizes itself, that creates bills that massively inject massive amounts of capital into the market, calling it an Inflation Reduction Act, because apparently as long as you just say you're reducing inflation, yay! So we have a bunch of morons in charge of the global economy right now, which means that I suspect things will get worse. But in the intermediary, I suspect that the next month will actually be quite positive, because the fucking seals are going to continue to clap their hands for the growth, for how we got here. So, what's interesting here too is that even within this Inflation Reduction Act, there's a quote here from one of the Labor Department. It says, for the typical American household, though, this isn't going to move the dial on inflation in any meaningful respect. So they already know that it's not. But what they do is they create a bill, Inflation Reduction Act, to get everyone, we're run by political morons, ladies and gentlemen. It's absurd to me to watch how some of these people speak. Whatever the vice president's name is, or the press secretary, like, their brains don't work at a high capacity. Their IQ has to be lower than 107 to speak that poorly. Anyways, so everything's all screwed up. Things don't make sense. If we have words that we don't like, we just change the definition midway through the roll of the credits, effectively. So we do see, again, some growth in the market right now. I suspect it will continue that way. So CPI, inflation data, I don't know. Anyways, leave your thoughts, your questions, your comments down below. Did I get Jen Psaki and Kamala Harris's IQ wrong? Do you think it's above 107? I sure as hell don't. What about the president shaking hands with people, then instantly forgetting that there was a person he just shook hands with? The United States government is nothing but political theater at this point, and to think that there's anybody in charge other than the puppet masters behind, I think, is a bold, arrogant play. So anyways, we're going to leave it at that. Just a short, quick update on the CPI inflation data, the Inflation Reduction Act, where we print even more fucking money. Oh my God, we live in a goddamn cartoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Steve with the Arcane Barrel. See you on the next episode. And you like my Rick and Morty shirt? Like that? You see that? It's Rick. I don't know. Anyways, we'll see you guys in the next episode.